G'day everyone, welcome back to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. Today we are doing a mini topic, we'll get to that soon. We're going to be talking about boosting your stage presence, and it is very much a skill that you need to develop it in situ. That is, you kind of need to do it to develop it. We'll talk more about that as we get into today's show. Wherever you are, I hope you are well. I am reliably informed that today is International Sudoku Day. And of course, when I say reliably informed, Linda told me this morning via email. And I responded letting Linda know, do you know what? I've never played a game of is that even how you say it? Sudoku? I don't know. See, no idea. Maybe it's something I'll get into later in life. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So let us know in the chat if you've ever played Sudoku. Maybe today's the day, given that the 9th of September is International Sudoku Day. I don't know. Like there is literally a international day for everything and anything. It's crazy. Maybe you didn't know this, but for example, voice, there is a International Day of Voice, and that is the 16th of April every year. We typically make mention of it here on the show, but that's just another example. A day for everything. I hope today is going well for you. I hope you've had a lovely weekend, and as for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, as your day comes to an end, I hope you've had a lovely day. I've got a big week to finish up for my term 3. Here in Australia, we run terms. There are four teaching terms in a year typically. We're coming to the end of term 3, and then I'm going to go down and see my son, who's in the Air Force, and spend a weekend with him, which will be great. I'll leave this weekend, and I'll only be down there for a day, but I'm really looking forward to that. And family is important, right? Family that's what it's all about. Family. But of course, here on the show, we focus in on our singing. This means that next Monday, I'm on studio break just for 1 week. So next week, there is no show. Just put that in your diaries. Of course, many of you have already subscribed to the channel and hit the white bell icon to make sure you always get notifications for when we are going live, which we do pretty much during the year. Every Monday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Look at your clock right now, because whatever the time is right now, at the top of that hour, going back about 4 minutes, that's when we meet every Monday. Except when I'm on studio break, except on public holidays, and except between December and January. We take a big, long break. Both Linda and I need a big rest over December, January, and then we come back in February. Anywho, so we'll come back and get into things. We've still got a couple of special guests to join us in a couple of weeks, which will be great. Not in a couple of weeks, but for term 4. And in fact, I think we've got 3 guests that we'll be having on the show over that time. And we'll do a couple, I've scheduled a couple more mini topics, which are always good to do. And of course, we've got the Q&A. And, of course, we've got the pre-record videos, the reaction videos, the instructional videos. There is a lot going on here at Voice Essentials on the channel. Without further ado, let's get into today's topic. And you'll see I've put a question for you to all talk about as we're going through in the live chat. Make sure you tell us what are the main things or thing, singular, that you really feel you need to focus in on to boost your skills around your performance, because it's important. This is an important area to develop, And today we're going to be looking at 9 specific areas. Of course, there are more than 9, but we only have time to look at 9 today, and so we're going to get into that, boosting your stage presence. And as I said, this is an area where I often say to singers, developing singers that I have working here in the studio or I'm privately working with online, you kind of got to be doing it to develop it. It is skills, and we'll talk about some skills, some things that you can do in your own practice space that are very beneficial. But to really hone performance skills, you have to spend time on stage. Now, not everyone who is a part of the Voice Essentials community, and maybe this is you watching today, not everyone is seeking to develop their voice to then perform. And that's completely okay. Certainly don't take today's discussion as a point of pressure trying to, manhandle you onto stage. We're not about that. We really want you to be comfortable in your own skin and being here for the reasons that work for you. But for those of us who are wanting to step onto stage and are wanting to do that with a sense of, confidence and comfort and really feeling like you're developing in that area, I think this is going to be really beneficial for you. So let's talk about, firstly, we need to understand performance skills. And it won't come as any surprise. The very first thing that I want you to have really worked on and developed is the importance of your vocal technique mastery. There's nothing worse than stepping onto stage and really not feeling confident in your voice. Now, that does not mean, and this is probably worthwhile saying right up front, that does not mean that you need to have all of these things perfected before you step onto stage. That is not, if that were the case, none of us would have stepped onto stage. There is always going to be a sense of heightened anxiety, performance anxiety, that leads up to your first, second, third, 50th, 100th time on stage. But certainly what you can do is do a lot of things in the preparation, the lead up to you being on stage, and that will just help to calm things a bit. And one of those is developing your technique. We'll talk a bit about breath management as we go along a bit later, but breath management, one of the first things to go when we're talking about nerves is your breath. Breath fuels the voice. If you don't have really solid breath management, that can really disrupt your vocal presentation. And so just be mindful that you want to be on top of your breath management, your sense of control and articulation for clarity of word and lyric. We always want our lyric to be clear. We don't want to just be all jumbled up, all driven, because we're just not really on top of things. And then you want to also, and in fact, I saw a great example of that in my studio this morning. I've got a lady who is preparing for a performance next week. And so we were running this particular song that she's doing. And it was The Rose. We're singing The Rose, the Bette Midler piece, which is the song about Janis Joplin. And I made the comment to her, her use of very subtle dynamic movement was beautiful. And it really conveyed the message. She didn't overdo it. And that's often the key. We often think of dynamics as being really massive contrasts, but more often than not, it comes down to the subtlety. of the use of dynamics that best, you know, causes a journey through a song, and it enhances emotional expression, which is our next point: emotional connection, engaging the audience through genuine emotions and storytelling. Remember, great singing is not about perfect notes. Great singing is about communication. We say that all the time here at Voice Essentials. And that's what we're looking to do. We are looking to emote, to have that sense that what we are singing is really coming from a sense of authentic vulnerability. And when you do that, your audience will respond. And because when we do that, we're creating memorable experiences by conveying the song's message effectively. And that's what the audience is there for. They're there to be connected with. You know, remember, and this can be hard when we're first starting out as performers. It can be very hard to remember that the audience is not there for us. The audience is there for them. Yeah, you know, I mean, there is scope for the fact that there will be some audience members that are there for you, you know, especially if it's your first performance and you've got family and friends coming along to support you. They absolutely want to see you do your best. But once you mature in your performances and you're starting to perform in front of, you know, groups of people that are outside of that, you know, close family, friend sphere of influence, you need to understand they're not there for you. They are there for them. They want to have something fulfilled in them. And that is your role as a communicator, is to stir and connect those emotions. Be attentive to your musicality. Be all over the melody. You know, you want to stay in time. You think to yourself, that's a really odd thing. You know, if you're not in the zone with your timing and your rhythm, it just throws everything off. And again, the performance anxiety can disrupt that, right? And so it's so important that you've got your music down. When you've got your music down, you're going to feel so much more comfortable and secure in the performance as a whole. And we definitely want that. Well, let me just come back to here. And use phrasing and dynamics, as we're talking, to add character and style to your performance. The dynamics, the way you're choosing to extend phrasing or cut phrasing, it's all going to work in to that sense of communication. That's the key. That's what we're there for. Here's a great quote from Mahalia Jackson. To sing is to bring to life something that's hidden in your soul. That's what we're doing. And not only hidden inside our soul, but hidden inside the soul of our audience members. We want to unearth, unlock, and open people to their own inner soul, that own hidden compartment in themselves. And, you know, when we do that as performers, it's a very special moment. You know, when you feel that level of connection with an audience, man, there's nothing better. There really isn't anything better. It's awesome. Let's keep going here. Oh, hang on a second. That's not what I want. I'm hitting the wrong buttons, which won't surprise anyone. Developing stage presence. So what we want to do here is we want to use body language and movement. When we use gestures and movement to enhance the performance without distracting the audience, what we mean by that is it is so important that any movement that you do has reason to move. We refer to this as motivated movement. Why is your body moving? Why are you gesticulating with arms and hands? And why? If you don't have a really good reason for it, then don't. This can be difficult, especially when we're first starting out, because we want to be protective. We'll probably start doing things that you might not even be aware that you're doing. This is where you can practice this at home. Do your best to practice in front of a mirror. And you go, oh, but I feel uncomfortable looking at myself. You have to get used to seeing yourself in the mirror. And I know for some people this can cause some, it can be uncomfortable. But I want you to be able to watch your body. Yeah? I want you to be able to see what is your body doing while you are singing that you may or may not be aware of. And then on top of that, how does it look? Your audience is relating to you, not just audibly, but visually. In fact, I would venture your audience is first and foremost connecting with you visually, and then the audio connection is second. A very close second, but second nonetheless. We know this because your audience see you before they hear you, unless, of course, you start singing in the wings before you walk on the stage, which has been done, but you know what I'm saying. It's more normal for you to walk onto the stage and be seen before you are heard. And so that dominance of visual interaction is really important. And with that needs to be a sense of maintaining a relaxed and yet confident posture to project assurance. This is important. To project assurance comes out of the fact that we are, we're wanting to build confidence with our audience. I went to a community theatre show a couple of weekends ago to see a couple of friends perform in this particular show. They did a wonderful job. But the nature of this community theatre was funny. It was a complete disconnected. There was a dissonance for me. I had envisaged us stepping into a relatively modern theaterette. I had no reason to have conjured that up in my mind, but that's what I'd conjured up. So when we arrived at what was a very 1950s, 1960s hall with flat seating, no tiers, looking up at the proscenium arch on a 3 foot, very old school classic hall performance, there was a real dissonance for me, and I thought, oh dear, here we go, this is going to be. And so it took a little bit of time for the cast to, and this is all on me, this is not on the cast. It took time for the cast to reassure me through their confident presentation of, it was Pride and Prejudice that we were watching. It took time for them to earn my trust, reassure me through their confident, performance of the show, that everything was going to be okay. Yes, we were in a bit of a dingy hall on pretty average seating, but the actual show itself was great. And that is an important lesson for us. Your audience need to be reassured, and you need to earn their trust. And we do that through that simple, relaxed confidence that, hey, you've got this. You at times you may not feel like you've got this, but yet that's still what you want to convey. And you will get better at this over time, particularly if you're just starting out. What about eye contact? And I know we hear so many different, wives' tales about, I don't know, just look at the audience and, pretend they're all naked, or pretend they're all in their, underwear, or do not do that. Number one, that's creepy. Number two, that's going to take your mind off your job. You're not there to be thinking about what your audience is doing. You're there to be thinking about what you're doing. And so as you start out, if you need to, try to just scan the room. Now, to start with, you might feel more comfortable scanning across the top of people's heads, as if you're looking towards, it's almost for the audience, it'll feel like you're looking past them, which in the long term, as you mature as a performer, is not where you want to stay. You ultimately want to be able to develop the ability to look people in the eye. You don't need to do that to the point where it becomes uncomfortable. There's got to be moments where you, just like you would normally do in an everyday communication with a friend or a family, you don't, when you're talking with a friend or family member, one-on-one, you don't eyeball them, like just, like, no, you look around the room, you self-reflect, you have these moments where we have eye contact and then we look away. You remember, you're having a conversation with your audience members. And so try to develop the ability to make that connection with people's eyes. In some performance contexts, you won't be able to see the audience. There will be so much light coming down on you, and maybe some lighting fog and stuff going on that you won't be able to see the audience. And that can be, again, for the beginner performer, that can actually be reassuring, because you feel like you're like, okay, I can't see anyone, so that's better. I personally, as a person who has developed the skill to really connect with my audience members with eye contact, I always am a bit disappointed when I can't be really certain that I'm grabbing individual eyes. But regardless, work towards the eye contact. That is so important. And learn to read the room. Learn to adjust accordingly. And this is where patter can become really beneficial, is where you talk to the audience, not just singing, but talking. And for example, again, the music theatre show that we saw a couple of weeks ago, the community theatre, we learnt afterwards that the audience that we were in was the most vocal and responsive because the show, there was quite a bit of comic activity in this particular show. And apparently our audience was the most vocal in their response. And so the cast members really responded to that and started hamming things up a little, and it was a lot of fun. And you need to be able to read your room. What is your room giving back to you? And that might be, for example, maybe you've just done a really quiet, reflective, very intense song. Maybe if after that piece you know that the audience is really in that moment, don't be so quick to break that moment. Let the audience sit in it. And this might only be for a few extra seconds, but it might just be enough that you need to just sit. And that can be really helpful as well. The performance anxiety thing, which you've already mentioned, is going to be something that you are going to have to manage. There's, depending on which research study you look at, will tell you on, how many percentage of performers have nerves. I reckon everyone does. And if you don't, I wonder whether there's a bit of disconnect for you between what you're about to do. Pretty much every professional performer I talk to has had to work through some level of performance anxiety, and learn to manage that. And so don't be surprised. Don't be surprised by any performance anxiety that you have to learn to work through, because it's going to be there. And so just be ready. Just be okay with it, and go, oh, okay, yes, I'm nervous. Well, duh. And then just be prepared. And we've got other videos here on the channel where we specifically really deep down into performance anxiety, talk through those things. and you might want to go and check those out. They go into techniques to calm nerves, such as, deep breathing. And the first thing that will be, disrupted by performance anxiety is breath. The first thing that will disrupt performance anxiety is breath. So you've got to really get your breath in there, get it to calm down, and then you'll find your performance anxiety will come off the boil there. Peter Drucker has said the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said, and that's our job as performers. Communicating the subtext. We want to make sure that our audience has access to what isn't said. We need them to hear the subtext, and that's a big role of you on stage. Some practical tips for live performance. Some rehearsal strategies. The importance of thorough rehearsal, including run-throughs and mock performances. Here's a little saying that was said to me way back in my undergrad days at the Queensland Conservatorium. Amateurs practice it until they get it right. Professionals practice until they don't get it wrong. So true. Like that never has there been a more true saying for performance than that. And that means you are going to have to rehearse. As I said, do it in front of a mirror. And don't just, practice your songs. Practice walking into a space. Practice in your outfit that you are going to wear. Particularly ladies, your shoes. Think about what you're going to be wearing for your shoes. Can you spend an entire gig in the shoe wear that you've chosen? All of these, you don't want to find yourself in the middle of a second set thinking, my feet are killing me. Think about these things. Do it in front of a mirror. Practice your patter. What are you going to say? How are you going to tie it all together? Do not wait until you're in the moment to come up with that stuff. There are many performers who perform on the fly, but most of them are very experienced. And so develop your experience first, and then you can, ease off on the pre-planning a bit if you think you can. I've always been very jealous of those people who can do on the fly. I've never been that performer. I always have to do exactly what I'm talking with you about now. I am a fully rehearsed performer. And the other thing too is practice in varied environments to prepare for different settings. And again, the more you do this, the more opportunities you will have to perform in different spaces. A small theaterette is different to an outdoor setting, for example. And so, it's learning to be able to manage those different situations. Microphone and equipment handling, so important. You learn to hold a microphone. If you don't own a microphone, use a deodorant bottle. Get into the habit. Look, here's my drink bottle. Get into the habit of holding the mic. Yeah? Not, get into the habit and look at yourself. What does it look like in the mirror? And just become comfortable. All of this, we want it to look second nature, again, to visually reassure our audience that, hey, I've got this. We're cool. We're good. We're going to be, I know what I'm doing. You can trust me. And just the way you hold your mic can tell people a lot about what to expect from your performance. Workshop, learning to work with a mic stand itself is it can be almost look like a comic act when you see absolute beginners trying to fiddle with mics. What do I twist and how does it all go? Learn, and if you need to, prior to a show starting, if you know you're going to be working with a mic stand, go out, play with it, Get a sense of what do I, which screws do I have to do to loosen and adjust. And because even if you adjust a mic stand to be in the exact right position for you, it is uncanny how many times you go back to that same mic stand. It will have been adjusted to some other different position. So you do need to know how to work with mic stands. And then understand technical aspects. So for example, don't drop your mic. Don't lean it forward towards the audience unless you really know what you're doing. You're inviting feedback that way. Audiences, and more so sound people, sound engineers, do not like unexpected feedback. And that's a sure way to get a roll of gaffer thrown at you from the sound desk. So just be mindful of these technical things. Know where is my sound space from my foldback wedge if I've got floor monitors. Know how to communicate with your sound engineer. All of these things are important for you to know and to learn and to refine and just become better at them. And finally, adapting to audience feedback. We talked a little bit about that. Your audience is going to react. Be attuned to that. Again, they are there for them. Are you meeting their unstated expectations? Do you get a sense that they are with you, or do you get a sense that they are jostling with you? And the longer you perform, the better you'll get to read that. But learn to read that. Don't ignore that. Be really attuned to what your audience is on a metaphysical level communicating with you. And then adjust your performance elements to keep the audience engaged and connected. It is ultimately all about the audience. It's not about you. And the sooner you as a performer can mature beyond the sense and the thought that this performance is all about me. I hope this is, everything. Is everyone going to like me? As soon as you can mature beyond that and realize that it's important that you are there for them, the sooner things can go a lot smoother for you, and people will really respond. Because it's not that there's a dearth of that experience out there, but certainly it's not the norm, for performers to really give of themselves to the audience. And that's what we need to do. And Jennifer Hudson said, a great singer can hold a note, but a great performer can hold an audience. I think that is the perfect way to wrap up today's mini topic. You want to hold your audience. And there are things, as we've talked through today, there are things that you can do to really, really develop that sense of connection with your audience. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Today we're going to come down to some questions. I'm coming down here to find Sharon had a comment here about, I have to get more comfortable. Here we go. Sharon's made a really cool comment here about patter. I have to get more comfortable with between song banter. Any tips? Firstly, particularly if you are, Sharon, and this is a great question, and there, I do have at least one video on the channel, if you want to go and check it out, about developing patter. So it goes into more detail than I'll be able to go into now. But I want you to really think about what is the purpose of the song? What is the purpose of the overarching performance? Think of patter, and you use the word banter. I use the word patter. Think of it as the mortar that holds the bricks together. Bricks just stacked one on top of the other will have got no stability. They will fall over. You need that mortar to really glue the bricks together. The bricks being the song in this metaphor. And I want you to think about the song. What is the message? Why did you choose this song? There's so many different things that you can mention, but don't mention them all. That's keep it to a minimum. People are ultimately there to hear you sing, so you don't want to, be up there giving a sermon, but you do just want to talk with your audience, and communicate why is listening to this next song so important. Give them reason, and I think you'll find that goes a long way. This next question is on the same kind of topic from Vava. Dr. Dan, I have another question. Michael Jackson was classified special because they said that he had the ability to make people look at him without doing something. What does that mean? I think there is a thing that some might term charisma, that some performers bring higher levels of charisma to the stage than others. I think an example of a singer who has, it almost, for me, Robbie Williams has, it's almost like charisma seeps from the pores of his skin. Now, whether you like or dislike Robbie Williams as a performer, we're not talking to that. I'm talking about that sense of energy that just seems to, I don't know, there's something about Robbie Williams on a stage. He's just massive on stage. And I wonder whether that's what people were noting in Michael Jackson, this sense of charisma. I think, case in point, a lot of these really top tier performers that we could mention have that ingredient, perhaps to a higher level than what the rest of us might be able to exude. And that has to have a certain level of ego attached to it. It could be argued both positive and negative, and so there's a quite a bit about it, and it's not talent. We try to really quash the idea of talent being the platform that we all should or shouldn't sing on. Singing is a skill. We acquire the skills and we develop the craft. But there is something particular about certain individuals, and I think it speaks to this idea of charisma as being a big part of that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Patricia has written a question here in relationship to what we've been talking about. Dr. Dan, how do you balance the fact that the audience enjoys covers and can relate to them, but you want to sing originals where I know I feel vulnerable because the song is mine? Great question. Patricia, let me spit out your name, Patricia. Patricia, I think you, firstly, as we were saying before, you ultimately, you are there for the audience. And so we can't, this is circumstance / context driven. And so I'm about to make a generalized statement that, you could find exceptions to what I'm about to say left, right, and center. But in general, we are there to give the people what they want. It might not be what they need, but it is what they want. So when I'm talking with a young performer who is developing this area of their craft, we'll talk about having at least 2, preferably 3 covers that are going to develop that sense of assurance and trust from the audience that this is going to be a safe space, they're going to love listening to you, and that's going to be fantastic. And then once you've got that sense of trust and that connection, that sense of trust will then come with a giving of permission from the audience to you, the performer, to take the opportunity to share one of your originals. But you don't want to then go, okay, I've got you now, here's 7 originals. No, I would do 1, maybe 2 originals, and then back into some covers, and then maybe another original. We have to remember that, and songwriting is a whole other kettle of fish, but it too is a skill. There are reasons why certain songs become bangers and others become clangers. And even if your song means a lot to you, it doesn't matter what you think about your song, and you might be very proud of it, and it might be a great song, but if your audience doesn't connect with it, you'll lose them. And so that's how I'd go about it. Establish trust, make sure you've got a sense of connection with some covers, and then introduce your original. Of course, and again, this is one of those exceptions to what I just said, if you are in a venue where it is an originals venue, we've got a couple here in Brisbane, where the whole point is for you to share your originals, then you might only need to do like your own cover version of a cover straight into an original. You might even just go straight to an original because that's the context. But just be mindful that it's got to be based in trust. And if you've got that trust, then people are going to be happy to listen to your original because they want to. They're loving what you do. And so, hey, let's have a listen to something that we've never heard before. And that's something that you can get into. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I've very much enjoyed talking about performance with you. There are more questions there, but I'll tell you what we're going to do is we're going to get into, we'll save those for next time we meet, which will be in 2 weeks' time when we do a Q&A. And we'll come back in 2 weeks and have a look at those. I hope that's been helpful. Please leave a thumbs up if you've enjoyed today's show and talking through those things. And I very much hope that, that you can take something really practical from today. You know, even if maybe it's just learning to stand in front of a mirror and practice. That will go a long way to benefiting your overall development as a performer. There you go. End of another show. We just keep doing them, don't we? I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. And I'll come back all refreshed because not only am I going to go and see my son for a weekend, I think my wife has organised next week we're going to restain the deck. You know, just one of those very ordinary run-of-the-mill tasks. It needs to be done. And so I will see you after I've seen my son and stained the deck. I hope you all have a good couple of weeks. I'll see you again soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.